Welcome to the real Monster D. That would be me. Today, we are going to bring the thunder, like the sound of 1,000 hooves stamping on the ground. For today, I have a very intense special guest. I have with me the drummer of Cloven, Mr. Mark Bristow. And he is here right now. Hello, Mark.
Hello, how are we doing? You good?
I'm doing well. I did say the name correctly, yes?
Absolutely, yeah, that's fine. I've been called worse.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me today. And I also want to thank you retroactively for talking with me through sales. I actually, we first met when, or were introduced to one another as I was gaining some wonderful Cloven Hoof merch, and you just made a point to reach out to me and let me know that there would be a bit of a delay, but it would be coming because of everything that was going on. Yeah. And I sincerely just appreciated the thought to reach out. You know, I never expect anyone to do that, but when you did, it was great. But so I have to ask with that. So with you handling that aspect of merch, is that sort of your way of getting a little closer to fans, since you're usually stuck behind sort of like the drum cage and the menagerie of your awesome instrumentations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, Age of Steel came out. It was in that challenging period where the album comes out and then normally straight after you go on tour, and we just come off the back of a really, really great tour actually through Spain. Lee and all those guys had done the USA as well, as you know. Then we've done Portugal, we've done Athens, we played a gig in the UK. So it was all looking fantastic. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And I just thought to myself, we've released a fantastic album. We're getting some really, really good, great reviews. We're getting some really good interviews like with yourself and other places in the States and South America and Japan and places like that. We just haven't got anything yet for the fans related to Age of Steel because the whole world's kind of gone on stop. So yeah, I just kind of put myself forward and said, look, Lee, we need to come up with something for Age of Steel. Why don't we come up with a limited edition T-shirt? I think this might work. And then I kind of, as you do, kind of brokered the idea to the rest of the guys. And they all said, yeah, it sounds great. And then George said to me, George Cole, lead singer, fantastic lead singer, of course. He said, why don't you consider doing this type of design instead, rather than just the album cover? Why don't you do this, get somebody to design something similar to this? So I got a friend involved and yeah, we kind of went down that route. And I think that I wanted to do that because it's really important that fans can resonate with us as a band and they can kind of wear that with the people, their friends, their family, whoever it might be. And I think metal's sometimes about the representation that you have of kind of the genre, and that is who you are as a person. So being able to wear Cloven Hoof or whatever band it might be that you love, be it by a patch or a T-shirt, it's actually really, really important. So yeah, I kind of took it upon myself to do that. I've actually got I've just had a message actually from we've been out of stock of patches for a while, again because of the pandemic and various other things. So I've got 450 patches on their way to us. Should be with us next week. And I think it's really important that we do stuff like limited editions as well. Those T-shirts, your T-shirt, for example, they are limited edition, 1 of 50. I have mine that's never going to be worn. It's really, really important to give that back to fans. I think people want it as well. So yeah, my background, I'm in sales, and that's what I do. So coming up with a kind of commercial thing for Cloven Hoof is really important for mainly the fans, not for us. We don't do it to make a ton of money. We do it just to give something back. And that's what we really enjoy. We really enjoy seeing people wearing them and asking for autographs and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that's apart from being drums, I suppose, I'm the merch dude as well, maybe. Unofficial title.
Drumming up sales, huh? I like that.
Yeah, I should use that. Drumming up sales, 100%. That's great.
Speaking of times that you'll always remember, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but your first time performing with Cloven Hoof was at the Gala Metal Festival in Spain. That was in 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Okay. And I just want to ask, so what, if you can sort of call back to that time, what sort of was your mindset during that first show? Like, I don't know if you were completely like butterflies inside, or if you were, were feeling like fierce and ready to sort of attack, or what was going through your mind at that very, very first performance there?
I think that I've been fortunate over the years to have a drum kit set up in a studio that I can use all the time. So you get used to the height of everything and where everything's set up and everything else. We're getting a plane and all I've got is my double bass drum pedal with me. And, actually probably 3 months prior to that gig, we started all playing together. So we knew that the songs were absolutely nailed. More for me, the worry was, right, what kit am I using? What cymbals am I going to be using? Where's everything going to be placed? How long have I got to set up? But yeah, I think that the mentality was, let's go out there and absolutely smash it, because we're only here for this gig. But yeah, there's plenty of bands around us and stuff like that. But people ultimately are here to see us, and if they're not, we need to make sure they need to come and see us. So there was huge nerves. Don't get me wrong, I was absolutely bricking it. But as soon as that first note hits, the practice that you've put in prior kind of kicks in, and it all becomes muscle memory. And you're then able to put a little bit more into the performance. But yeah, seeing that crowd for the first time, seeing people singing like Reach to the Sky and Cloven, Hoof and Highlander and all that kind of stuff, it was more of a euphoric, like, oh my God, this is actually happening. This is everything that I wanted it to be kind of job. So and then when you get off, of course, it's the whole like adrenaline come down and everything else. You just want to go out and do it again.
Prior to you officially joining Cloven Hoof, you had done a little bit of behind-the-scenes studio work with Lee. Can you tell me what some of that work was like?
Yeah, so Lee's got a massive bank of songs just in general. And he's always looking to do different projects. And actually one of them ended up turning out to be East of Lyra, which is a very much an ode to Rush and a prog album. So he got me doing various kind of like metal stuff, very stuff similar to Cloven Hoof, stuff similar to the East of Lyra project as well. Just a whole plethora of different songs. And to me at the time, I was like, wow, this is all going on one album. Like, this is one track's like 9 minutes long, and this is like 3, and yeah. So I think at the time it was probably just a bit of a test from Lee, just to see if I was the real deal. Some of it came out. So Age of Steel was actually one of the songs that I recorded, which was actually on which album was it on? The Definitive Part 2, with like Curse of the Gypsy and a couple of others as well. So those are tracks that were on there. And then of course Age of Steel ended up being into the Age of Steel album. So it was all a bit of a test, and like I say, a couple of tracks came out and it sounded great. So yeah, it was strange times, because I never knew what it was kind of going to go into. But now that I'm here, I can be like thankful that I spent hours and hours and hours making sure that they sounded as good as they should have.
You specifically, what, if anything, keeps you from coming to the U.S.? And also, I have to ask, have you ever met and discussed with Danny White?
No, so I mean, I've had the odd conversation with Danny on Facebook, be it about just random crap as you get to talk to people out on Facebook and stuff. But nothing, there's nothing really preventing me coming over to the US. I just think that from a tour point of view, the amount of money that it costs to get a band over there and to rent everything and vans and everything, you have to make sure that you're out there for like 30 days plus. I have a full-time job. I've got a career, and I will dedicate a lot of time to Cloven Hoof, of course. But I just have to be careful that when I actually come back out of a 30-day tour, that I've still got a job at the end of it, because the job pays for my house and keeps my wife happy and my son happy as well. Right. So really, it's just a time element, and I think that that's really been it. But yeah, if the opportunity comes up, I'm one of these that I don't want to go to my deathbed, be that tomorrow or 50 years' time or however long that'll be, and think, I really should have done that. So I'll always find a way. So if there's an opportunity to play the States again, 100%, I'll be all over it. And then in terms of speaking to Danny, and I speak to George obviously a lot and ask about how Ask is going on, and Danny and that. But because we haven't really had that personal connection like Ash has had, like he's been on tour with him for 30 days and everything. Right. It's a little bit more challenging. I've got no, not a bad word to say about him. I mean, Christ. In fact, the only bad word I've got to say about him is a couple of songs that he wrote on the album that he was on with George and Lee and all those guys, Who Mourns the Morning Star,
Yeah.
is that some of the bits really made me step up and go, right, I've kind of got to match that. Thanks, Danny. Thanks for setting the bar quite high. Cheers, bro. So yeah, if anything, I've got to thank him for pushing me, which I'll never do to his face, of course. But if he watches this, he can see that.
That's the official. As official musician advice, whenever someone else is stepping in for you, leave the bar on the ground so they can pick it up, and put it where they want to. No.
Yeah, it's like if you're playing on stage and you can see your opposite musician. So if I see another drummer at the front of the gig going, you know that you've done a good job. So that's my way of doing that to Danny.
Your first full official album was Age of Steel.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite part of making that album?
I think it was the comfortability of being with a producer and friend, lead singer, pianist, guitarist. This is all one man, by the way. He's one of these annoying people that can play everything that I was used to. I think that when you take on a project like this, and you've had Who Mourns the Morning Star that's gone global, and then you've got to try and top that, having somebody that understands the way that you play, the stuff that you like to play, the way you like it to be played, and the time frame that you like to do it in. That made it actually exceptionally easy. Because at certain points, Chris would say to me, I know what you're trying to do there. Have you tried doing it this way? Or I'd say, all right, you know that demo bit that was there, I want to change it up and I want to put a faster bit in there. Alderley Edge would be a classic. So Alderley Edge has got that kind of like mid-tempo, gallopy kind of beat. And then in the chorus, it speeds up by twice. And that's the bit that I heard. And I said to Chris, I said, I really want to try and put this in. Should we just like give it a go and see what happens? And he said, yeah, we've got plenty of time. Why not? We can just do everything section by section. We can change things out. We can swap this round and then we can record it all as a whole to make sure that it's congruent. And I said, okay, let's do it. So we stuck it in and it worked. And that's one great thing about working with Chris is we bounce off each other and know what's going to happen at what time. And to be honest with you, apart from hearing the tracks and Lee going, right, here's the tracks, I need it done by this date. That's the only real push that I had for anybody to say, "I'll do it like this" or "do it like this." I just listened to the tracks for months and months and months and thought, I'll do it this way. And that was cool. Is knowing that this is going to go out to thousands of people regardless. So make sure that you put your all into it. And I did. And I think that the proof's in the pudding. Really, it sounds great. And Robert Ramanga as well, I have to give it to him, the final mix that he did, unbelievable. The absolute icing and cherry on top of the cake. I do have a couple of favourites that are on there. So Victim of the Furies being one because it's the fastest. The fastest track on there at 180, 180 BPM. It's very, very furious. And then I will say I love Alderley Edge for the drum section that I put in the chorus because I think it really, really goes. And then one of the fan favourites seems to be Touch the Rainbow. And it's strange because you listen to an album and you go, well, I like this track and I like this track. And then the fans go, well, we like this track. And then you start listening to it and going, I love that as well.
What is your favorite, or perhaps what are some of your top favorite classic Cloven Hoof songs to play?
There's quite a few. In fact, there's one that we haven't yet played that I've had on the back burner not on the back burner, but I've been learning a lot recently, and certainly for the Spain and Portugal stuff, which is Mistress of the Forest, purely because it changes so much. There's so many different time signature changes, tempo changes, different kind of feels. So I love that track just from the complexity of it. Reach for the Sky is amazing. That has got to be one of the highlight songs to play, purely because it powers straight through. It's really, really simple. It's got an epic chorus that everybody sings along to.
All right, well, I'm going to let you go now, and I'm just going to say to you, as well as to all the metal and monster fans out there, to stay monstrous.
Absolutely.
There are scarier things surrounding Godzilla than just spoilers for the upcoming movie. From a certain point of view, from just the right mindset, the king of the monsters can really bring the thrills and the chills. Yes. Today, I bring to you straight from my very own childhood. The 5 scariest moments across the entire Godzilla franchise. Now, tread lightly with your comments, for you may find some of these quite silly and humorous now. But remember, these came from a place when I was still young, and the concept of reality versus special effects was not quite solidified yet. The first comes from, appropriately enough, King Kong versus Godzilla. Yet, the scare for me, the big scare of this movie, comes not from the titular battle between these two monsters, but actually from giant octopus. The first time I saw this creature as a young child, I was so just curdled with fright. And what I did not understand back then that made it so unsettling was because I do believe even that far back, I had something of an interest in how movies were made, and that thing just looked so horrific, so frighteningly real, it repulsed me. And what I did not realize was that octopus was so lifelike and repulsive because it was in fact a real octopus with a mother and her child trapped in a house. Oh, there may have been at least 2 viewings. It may have taken me 2 to 3 viewings before I could actually sit through that scene, just assuming that something horrific happened to them when they were enveloped in all of those tentacles. Next, this might surprise you as well, comes from Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. Yes, the alternative title, Ebra, Horror of the Deep, would have been oh so much more fitting to my young eyes and ears. What scared me the most as a child, I think, may possibly be what they call a Mandela effect. It was something that my little brain added to a scene that I do not believe is quite there, not quite as in graphic detail as what I saw. When the sea monster first appeared, it capsized a small boat and caused this huge sort of set of tidal waves and destruction. And my young brain saw in all of those confusing claws and arms victims lying limp and hanging from this monster and its clawful maws. Out of all the Godzilla movies, this is probably among the top 5 lightest of them all. I mean, this is perhaps the movie that set the standard that surf rock could be appropriate for giant monsters. I mean, one of the very subplots, a tiny subplot in this movie, is that of a dance marathon. How much more merry can you get than that? And yet, for me, for that one moment in this movie, Ebra truly was a horror of the deep. The next scene we have is with Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. And again, this has nothing to do with the main battle. This certainly has nothing to do with King Caesar. No. What scared me was the first time the agents of the alien race from the 3rd planet of the black hole were first done in by one of the heroes. He fell over, and you had that sort of groovy transition between his human face and his sort of alien ape visage. Something about how jarring that was just shocked me as a child. It was the sound effects, it was that weird wiping effect, and then as soon as the creature got up, to heighten the action, it seemed that in a few cases in here, they went from their regular camera on a tripod to something like a handheld or something just less steady. It's funny because the entire found footage concept was not a common occurrence back then, but everything was so shaky and stilted that it just repulsed me. So yes, the first few times I saw these sort of ape creatures appear seemingly out of nowhere and just go berserk, it made my brain go bananas. And next comes from the movie Godzilla 1985 or 1984. Any which way, Godzilla returns here. So, regardless, what scared me happened right at the very beginning of the movie. See, this is one of those rare times when Godzilla it got down low and personal with some of the human characters, and it became a true horror film. It began on this rickety ship with these crew members being suddenly attacked from a creature inside the ship, a sea louse. And as a child, just seeing this little arthropod creature jumping at people's necks and attacking them, it was almost too much to handle. It was not until years later I looked back at this thing and realized just how stiff and immobile it was, and how clear and obvious it was that it was being fed across a string to do its dirty deeds towards these people. But oh well, such is the mind of a child, right? I have one more thing that really put my nerves over the edge, and that comes from the movie Do Not Laugh, Godzilla's Revenge, or All Monsters Attack. And I know what you are thinking. Really? You were scared of Godzilla's Revenge? That is easily the goofiest of all the Godzilla movies. This movie is famous for its goofiness. Well, what can I say? Sometimes even between the goofs, there lies a scare. This one was very quick. Simple. It was the tail end of a scene that our young little protagonist had just finished with Minya, and he had his back to the jungle, and out of nowhere, the jungle itself grabbed him. The plants themselves just came alive and sucked him into themselves. It was essentially a jump scare, and I jumped because I was scared. And then, pretty quickly, that was over, and it turned out that was just a part of his dream, and it was just some mere dastardly bandit that had grabbed him. Yeah, I'm here reliving this in my mind, saying that an armed criminal is somehow less scary than some great big ferns. But again, that was my childlike perception of things. Oh no! A tentacled alien is taking over the monster lair! Help! I cannot defeat this alien tentacle monster! Ah! Just kidding! This abominable little beast is actually a root vegetable. It is a parsnip, believe it or not. It came in a box of allegedly misfit produce items, and as you can see, it quite fits the bill, does it not? Fear not, though. It may seem a little extra shriveled, and actually it is far more shriveled than what it was when I first procured it. When I did, these three sort of appendages were all jutted down to the point that it would have easily stood up. Let me see if I can get it to do so now. Almost like one of the War of the Worlds tripods. But now it is shriveled. So let that be a lesson. Even a day or two can make all the difference to your organic food. But it is still in perfect condition for me to make a root monster. So let me grab one of my trusty markers, and let me turn this creature into something even more horrific. First, I move this creature around until I see a perspective that really suits what I wish to do here. I think that might do it. And then I'm going to go to town. You know, something that does not scare me is using slightly used paper with a little bit of spotting already on it. It's good to still use things and to be conscious of, you know, how wasteful we are or are not. Always helpful. Such is the reason I choose to take in such vegetations. Yes, what is left of this root vegetable when I am done monsterizing it is still going to become part of a meal. Have you come across any sort of oddly shaped, abominable produce such as this before? So I'm going to go this way. It's interesting because these sort of tentacles that it has turned into, they almost require a little more finesse than what this big fat marker of mine would allow. But rather than switching to something thinner and smaller, which would allow for more dexterity, I am going to just use this as an opportunity for the challenge. Alright. And now, let's see here. It has sort of a natural arm-shaped kind of a webbing in between this one particular tentacle here. I'm going to give it a pocket watch. These sort of old-timey sophisticates always seem to have pocket watches on hand. So I'm going to do that, and I believe I have another trick up my sleeve. I just need to create eyes wherever I can. Oh, and check this out. Oh, watch this. I'm going to switch colors now. Yeah. And now I'm going to have a little monocle. The monocle, I make the sort of inner parts of curves thicker than the exterior parts, and that also creates some added depth. The inner parts and the under parts. So a lot of times when I'm creating a giant monster, you know, the lines that form the legs and the feet will often be thicker than, you know, the arms or the hands, if a creature actually has them, to help create a little extra weight. And let's see. And done. And here is my perfectly polite parsnip. How is that? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? Did you enjoy rooting for that vegetable monster? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video entire. If you did, please do click on that like button and toll that bell. And also, keep in mind that I have a brand new Patreon account, The Real Monster D, where you can go and help support my endeavors and help to grow the quality and the monstrousness of these videos all the more. Please do check that out. And with that, thank you for watching and stay monstrous. I told you. Next week's Daily Kaiju drawing theme will be Plush and Thunder. Do not forget my Patreon.